What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Five Elements podcast. I'm very excited for today's episode because I'm having an old friend and a colleague who I look up to in a lot of ways because he's built something very authentic and I think also very helpful at the same time in the same industry. His name is Daniel Rosenthal. You might know him as Rosentrain. And we talk everything about him being a new dad and still juggling his business and being a personal trainer. And there's a lot of relatable stories there because I work with a lot of clients who also have kids, who are busy professionals, who can't really fit a ton of time into prioritizing their workouts. And Daniel has the exact same clientele, but also the exact same experience. And him and I talk about how our own struggles with fitness and staying consistent and overly dogmatic approaches to nutrition and health have gotten in the way of our success historically, but also have informed our coaching abilities going forward because there is a high level of relatability when you have gone through those struggles as well. So we talk about everything there. We banter a little bit because we do go back. So it's a fun conversation. And I'm actually going to get right into today's episode after I give a little bit of an ad read for my own business, not one of the old school fake ad reads. I've been doing a lot of podcast episodes back to back. So I'm going to skip Roses and Thorns and I'm going to skip everyone's favorite segment, the pseudo ad read, because I don't really have a lot of time this week to put into it. And I don't want to make up Roses and Thorns just for the sake of it, because I did record the last episode pretty recently. So I don't want to have to perform that. I just want to be pretty authentic. And you know what? Today I don't got it. And that's actually very reflective of some of the coaching stuff Daniel and I are going to talk about, because you can't always do everything, but something is better than nothing, right? And if I would be trapped in a perfectionist mindset, I would be like, I need to put out the perfect episode every time. But to be fully transparent with you, this is a side gig for me because I have a coaching business, I have a personal training business, and I also do some writing for Precision Nutrition as well. And that's taking up the bulk of my time. But I love doing the podcast. So we're going to keep this rolling. So if you want to support the show, the first thing I would say to do is leave a review wherever you listen to this podcast. Most people probably listen to this on Spotify or Apple. So if you can leave a 5-star review, say some nice words. I got some pretty fun ones on there. I think my favorite one is that I'm not a jerk. And I was like, wow, that's a 5-star review, not a jerk at all. And I love giving off the vibes that I am a jerk and then not being one. It's the contradictory behaviors that I find interesting. So I know I look like a Chad. I know I look like I wear sunglasses inside and crush Paps ribbons. And one of those things are true. And the other one is that I only sometimes wear sunglasses inside. But I also can lead my coaching practice from an empathetic perspective. I can talk about some of the heavier stuff. And I'm not just here to get you yakety yacked. I am here to help you build a healthy relationship with food, your body, and training at the same time, while also looking like I used to wear Lacoste polo and pop that with the Kanye West Ray-Ban sunglasses. So I know that I come in a confusing package. And Daniel and I talk about that as well, where he also is in a similar position because he coaches a lot of moms who are like 40 and struggling to manage everything. And he's just I guess he's 39 now. I still think of him as a 30-year-old dude, but he is a younger man. And now that he's a dad, I guess that kind of torches my entire argument here, but I'm rambling because your boy loves to ramble. So again, if you want to support the show, leave a review wherever you listen to it. It actually helps tremendously because the old show is still on Spotify and Apple and all the other playlists. And a lot of the old reviews are on the old show. I didn't have access to the information to take down the old show. So those still live on. And I need to build up some new reviews on this one so people want to listen to this one and not the old one. Secondly, you can apply for online coaching. That is the bulk of what I do. So if you are struggling with your programming, with your fitness goals, with your nutrition coaching, and you're looking for the guidance that you need, online coaching is going to be perfect for you. So it's very remote, it's flexible. I would send you your customized programs through an app that I use that has a full exercise library. So if you don't know what exercise you're doing, there'll be a YouTube link of most of the time, it'll be me describing what you should be doing. You'll upload any videos for your form onto the app with your results, and I will give feedback once a week on that. You'll get a weekly check-in, and we will do a monthly call, and there will be a constant level of communication to keep you on track with your goals, give you the support that you need. And I'm bringing the same energy that I bring to this podcast to my coaching clients, right? It's led from empathy, it's led from the best evidence available, but it also makes space for you as a human to redevelop a strong relationship with the gym, your body, nutrition, while getting strong as hell and reaching your goals. I've said this before, if you're only focused on fat loss, I'm probably not your guy. I do help some people with it, but it is going to be more in a holistic way where I'm not solely targeting in on fat loss as the number one target and the number one priority. I want to build something more, and I want to build some confidence in you, some self-efficacy in you, and get you feeling more confident and stronger in the gym while building better habits. So if all of that sounds good for you, you can apply for online coaching, and the links for that will be in the description of this episode. Now we're going to get to today's episode with Daniel Rosenthal, also known as Rosentrain. I titled it Riding the Moderation Train to Success because that's exactly what Daniel does. It's not about being extreme. It's not about living in the gym. It's not about restricting everything off your plate. It's the core principle of that 80-20 rule personified because that 20% we cannot neglect. We need to enjoy our lives, but we also need to be goal-driven and consistent. So sit back and relax. I'll see you on the other side and enjoy today's episode with Daniel Rosenthal. Okay. Daniel, what's up, man? Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how's it going, Dylan?
I'm doing well. How you been?
I'm pretty good, thank you. It's been a while. Yes, it's been a long time since we saw each other in person, huh?
In person,
That's
for
like
sure. But I feel like
4
everyone
years.
hasn't seen you in person in a long time.
No, no, it's been a long time. But we've been doing a bunch of stuff on Instagram, like in 2020, 2021, right? We
Yeah,
did a few lives, right?
we did do a live. That was actually a really fun live. That was the inspiration when I was like, when I got the podcast going back up, I'm like, I gotta have Daniel on because that conversation just went so smooth, and we were
Oh,
just
thanks, man.
yapping about nothing is kind of the vibe of the show because if for any of the listeners, they know it's kind of like a one question, everyone knows the rules vibe, where I'll write down a bunch of questions for an interview and we might get through one because it'll just
Well,
spiral.
that's good because I don't really know much about anything. So talking about nothing is absolutely fine by me.
I like two ignorant men on a podcast talking. I don't think there's enough of those actually. So I think we're breaking grounds here.
Oh, so
And,
unique.
and
Yeah, I
we'll
love
get to it.
it.
Okay, so I think first off, for anyone who doesn't know Daniel Rosenthal on Instagram, he's known as Rosentrain, and he's been creating a lot of fitness content for like 4 or 5 years. He was actually doing it right before COVID, but I'll stop telling your story and I'll ask you about your story. So tell us who you are and like kind of tell us how you got here now.
Okay, cool. So I guess I started taking fitness, nutrition seriously around age 22, 23, which was a long time ago because, yeah, I turned 39 next month. So back then, just before I started taking it seriously, I never exercised. Well, I exercised because at that age I had no money, so I couldn't afford a car. So I had to walk everywhere. So it was only through getting my steps that my weight did not like balloon to a ridiculous level. But I never ate any healthy food, no fruit, no vegetables, only eat processed food. Drank way too much. I smoked 40 cigarettes a day. That's 40, by the way.
4-0.
40 cigarettes a day.
That's wild.
40 cigarettes a day. Yeah. Um, and I eventually got sick of waking up, like coughing my lungs up and not being able to, like, when I did move, not feeling that I had any level of fitness or strength. Um, so for me, the key was to quit smoking. It took me a few attempts, but I did quit smoking. Then I started working out a little bit more. I'd lifted weights on and off since I was like 16 or 17, but never seriously, never really following a plan, never knowing what I was doing. So I started learning about that. Started playing with nutrition. Then, as I found a lot of people who are on one extreme do, I went to the complete other extreme where I
Okay.
thought sugar's bad for you. You should never have sugar. You should never drink alcohol. You should never eat processed food. Never eat. I went down the whole paleo thing. Never eat grains or legumes; they're all bad for you. Never
Classic.
have white potatoes. All these ridiculous rules around food. Exercising way too much. So I did lose weight, obviously, but a lot of it was muscle, so that wasn't great. And it was only through slowly allowing myself to, start eating more carbs and following people and following accounts and just educating myself better about a more sustainable approach to fitness, to nutrition, to general lifestyle, where I stopped being so extreme, brought it back to this place of moderation, the whole 80-20 guideline when it comes to basically everything, right? The quality of food that you eat, your consistency of your workouts, of your habits. And so I would estimate that I probably have lost somewhere around 30 to 40 pounds of body fat, probably built about 20-ish pounds of muscle, and come to this place of moderation. So I found I have got kind of like accidentally discovered through my Instagram page, which I've been, as you said, I've been posting for the past 5 years about, my approach, my philosophy towards fitness, towards nutrition, towards weight loss, towards weight management. Um, it seems to appeal mostly to women
Yep.
who have gone through all these different kinds of diets, mostly to women over 40. Um, who grew up in the 90s just like me, and they had the whole like skinny is the best way to look, and all these ridiculous diets that I mentioned they've all tried, and who are also parents. And I'm a parent now. I wasn't at the time when I first started talking online, but I am a parent now. I've got a 3-year-old daughter who's 3 this month. um, and acknowledging that, yeah, when you're a parent, you're not going to be able to train in the same way that when you were 21. First of all, as we approach 40, your body just doesn't quite recover as quickly as it does back when you're 21. Like youth, you don't realize youth is a superpower.
Yeah.
Like you
It
can
really
do
is.
like 7 tough HIIT workouts a week, like a tough workout every single day, get by on 5 or 6 hours of sleep, have a few drinks every day, and you're basically fine.
Yeah.
You get away with that kind of stuff. As we age, we can't get away with that stuff quite as much. I started noticing that in my late 20s, around
Your
around
late
that around
20s.
that kind of age. Yeah,
You know what?
things. Oh yeah, this is like slowing down a little bit. Like pushing myself, like even like 6 or 7 years ago, wasn't quite the same as them. Um, and also realizing that yeah, when you have responsibilities like a full-time job and a spouse and kids, like working out every day just isn't realistic. Getting
Mhm.
more than 10,000 steps a day isn't realistic. So changing the mindset for the people that I work with anyway is 90% of how we get them to where they want to be. Is to change them away from that good food, bad food mentality, from that you have to crush yourself with workouts mentality to actually see results, um, towards, hey, just go for walks every day and try and get your 7 to 10,000 steps and focus way more on your stress management and your sleep than is reasonable, kind of, right?
Yeah.
Because very few people online talk about how stress and sleep will actually impact your results. And the people who do usually do it in a way which is basically just wrong, right? Where they talk about, hey, if you don't get enough sleep, it's going to cause fat gain.
Yeah.
If you're stressed out, it's going to stop fat loss. Well, it kind of will indirectly, and I'm sure we'll kind of talk about that. But for taking your stress seriously, stress management seriously, taking your sleep quality seriously, because I know that if you're a parent with a toddler, they may not be sleeping through the night, but that doesn't mean to say that you can't stop using your phone in bed to get a better quality of sleep. So yeah, I've got to this point here where um, I'm like pretty direct about on my Instagram page. I basically tell people exactly what needs to happen to get to where they want to be. But from a position of like, I know you're a real person who isn't going to live in the gym and who isn't going to eat a perfect diet.
Mm.
And so let's find an approach that works for you.
That actually like ties in so much of what I was thinking when you were speaking. And I think because some of the things you say online, and this isn't an insult, it's not unique, right?
Oh, absolutely nothing I say is original, brother.
Yeah, okay.
Nothing,
But
absolutely nothing.
the messenger does matter. And I do think that when we're intaking information, we can tell how authentic that information
Mm,
is from the conveyor of the message. So you yourself, you're saying a lot of things that if we're on a transcript would be pretty parallel to what a lot of fat loss coaches are saying. But I
100%.
know you've actually gone through some of this stuff. And the journey you talked about, it's kind of what I would call, it's a term I've heard, it's called me search. Like you basically just found
Mm,
out all the, like you basically did research on what would have helped you. You're creating content essentially that you wish 21-year-old Daniel was consuming because it's, or
totally.
well, not 2022 when you started actually actively getting into it.
Mm,
And there is an
yeah.
endless source of inspiration for content there. Cause I assume you can just go back to what was I like? Oh man, I used to actually think you can't have carbs. And if someone who had a level of perceived authority that I trusted let me know, in an effective communicative manner, hey, dude, you can, but here is what you need to think of. Like it's overall energy balance. It's not just the carbohydrates. And some of those foods are hyper palatable. So you'll overeat them and you'll actually attribute any weight changes to the carbohydrate itself, other than how the quantity that you consumed. And you use the term with fat gain and sleep of indirectly. A lot of people don't realize how much of the behaviors are indirect. It's
Yeah.
not sleep itself, right? It's the
Yeah.
state that being tired puts you in when you're making choices around your food. It's those types of things. And
100%. Yeah. Like when you're stressed, you're not going to eat a salad. Not going to
no,
happen. You're
honestly,
gonna
if
order
you
pizza,
did, I wouldn't
right?
trust you. I'd be like, if I had a client who was like, I was so tired last night, I worked a full day, I put my kid to bed, and then I just ate the biggest salad with no dressing. I'd have been like, you're fired. I don't work with psychopaths.
No, you're either a psycho or a liar.
Yeah, it's one of the both options are bad. And you know what? I don't know if this relationship is gonna work. Um, but what always has come across in your content is that this is something you've been through yourself. And what I find to be very interesting is I'm someone who's actually been through a similar journey. And
Mm,
not that gendered stereotypes are like 100% accurate, but this tends to be more of a thing that women go through in my experience.
totally.
And
Yeah.
I've related to women so much more because it's something that I've come through, something I've gone through as well. And I'm not sure if guys haven't gone through it and they're socialized, less likely to talk about it. So they won't say that. Like disordered eating amongst men is also very common. We just don't tend to talk about it to the same degree. But I find a high level of relatability with my women clients. And the clientele you're typically working with is that too. And I think it's interesting when a client sees you or sees me, like a 40-year-old woman, and is like, why is he speaking my language? Like this young guy, it doesn't make any sense. And it is because it isn't just a woman thing, it is a human thing. And
Yeah.
it's something that you've gone through and it comes through as very authentic in your messaging, even though you're saying the same thing a lot of people are saying. And I think that builds a big level of trust.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that, and I can only speak about it with confidence. Not only it's partly the education that I've gone through, but I'll be honest, it is more the experience that I've had.
Mm.
That's where it comes from. And I literally tell my clients that the reason I can so confidently tell you that you can eat sugar and still lose weight is because I used to believe you can't.
Yeah.
And now I know that you can, and I've seen that you can, and I've seen that I can, and I've read the research now.
You
So
can
it's
paint the
only through
picture for the experience. Like you're an artist who can paint a picture from a visceral experience, as where if someone's never been through it, they might be able to paint the exact same picture, but it's paint by numbers. You know what?
totally.
They're like the picture might look the same, but the soul is going to come through in the painting that comes from experience, and you have that experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. Um, and you're right about men, and maybe it's changing because you're right in that this doesn't seem to, at least doesn't seem to impact men in the same way. I think that's changing though, because there it used to be like back in the 90s. I don't remember there being like body standards for men. There were
Mm,
for sure for women, for
yep.
sure, and there still are, of course. And it's I don't want to blame the Marvel movies,
They
right?
didn't help.
Right,
They
they didn't
didn't
help the
help.
situation. So there are for sure there are, and also like let's think about social media. Like again, like back in the 90s, before the internet was widespread, you never ever saw a picture of a jacked bodybuilder,
Yeah.
except on like a random Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. But
You find a
you
niche
would never see
magazine.
that. Yeah, you had to go out and seek it, right?
Yeah.
But if you saw like a huge guy, like a bodybuilder jack guy back in the 90s, that was like, holy shit, look at that guy. Like
Yeah.
that was be so rare. But now you open up Instagram and it's right there.
Yeah.
So there's this extreme way of looking that is an extreme way. I'm not saying that it's a bad way to look, because if that's the choice that you made, hey, I'm not going to judge you for making that choice. But we have to accept that that is an extreme way of looking, an extreme way of living to get to that point. But now it's become a lot more normalized.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that when Hugh Jackman has his shirt off for that 6 second shirtless scene in Wolverine, like he spent literally the last 12 months preparing for that 6 second scene. The week leading up to it, he was dehydrating himself, getting rid of the salt and the water to achieve that very specific look. Like he literally looks like that for about 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then it all goes back to like, obviously, he was in great shape before that scene, after that scene. He's just obviously in great shape, but he doesn't look like that walking around because most people don't. Even bodybuilders at a contest, they
Yeah.
look like that for that morning or that afternoon of the contest, and then they don't for a while.
Yeah, they're
Um,
giant cat. They catfish you.
yeah, and
Bodybuilding is
we've been
a lot of time.
yeah,
Bodybuilding is one giant catfish, like because they don't look like
yeah,
that all the time, and they'll admit
yeah,
that. But and
yeah.
I think a lot of people forget they will actually get content from their shoots and they'll spread it throughout the year because it is a marketing thing for them. They're like,
I've posted this before. It's like, here's how Instagram influencers get in extremely amazing shape and how they stay there all year. So, first of all, they don't, as you said.
yeah.
Second of all, they spend a
First of all, it's a
couple of
lie.
days. They don't, right? Second of all, what they do is they get in their shape once. They then go to several different locations with several different outfits. They take a bunch of photos, like literally hundreds of photos. And as you said, they'll spread that content out throughout the year.
Yeah.
That's how they look like that all year. And again, like I don't want to say they look like shit, like aside from that, because they're in good shape, they're healthy, but they don't look ripped because it's not healthy to be that ripped all the time.
No,
And
it's
the only
definitely
people who
not.
actually can stay like that are on some kind of performance enhancing drugs,
Yeah.
which makes them stay like that. And I mean, I'm no doctor, but I don't think there are any positive long term effects from taking those kinds of things. Let's say,
I mean,
and here's the thing.
you could be like yoked long term. I guess
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
about it. Just being
Yeah,
yacked. That's the one
yeah,
positive.
yeah. And again, like I'm not even against people doing that if that's their choice,
No.
but I don't like people doing it and implying that that's how they look year round naturally and not
Yeah.
being open about it. Like if you want to take like any kind of drugs to look a certain way, cool. You just got to be open with it, especially if you're selling stuff, especially if you have a very impressionable audience. I think it's your responsibility there.
100%. That's an ethical responsibility that's been
Yeah.
really squandered in the fitness industry, and I do think that it's been changing a little bit because I
Mm.
think the average person who's engaged with fitness content is a little bit more critical when they see that than they used to
Yeah.
be, and I think like voices like yours and voices like people who challenge this stuff is very important because like to your point of what you were mentioning, like that has been used as if you take my supplement, you can look like Kai Green who's taking the supplement. When the real supplement is something you get in a back alley and it comes in a
Yeah.
syringe. Like, it is not in a pre-workout 5 grand scoop. I will tell you that.
Yeah.
And historically, they would use that. That doesn't. I don't feel like that's effective anymore. I think the average person is a little bit too skeptical, which is a good thing.
Mm.
But there are people still online who who they don't admit the positive things they have going for them that the average person might not. And I think you talk about that quite a bit because you mentioned being a dad now, having all these responsibilities. You don't live in the gym. And there's a lot of fitness influencers and coaches who do live in the gym and also love the gym. And I think that's an underrepresented barrier to
Yeah.
entry for a lot of clients
Yeah.
because I love the gym, but I've had a complicated relationship with the gym because I've had a complicated relationship with my body and exercise and
Totally.
food. But at the end of the day, I'll always come back to it because I love it. I work with clients who don't, and I can't change that about them. And
Mm.
they might never love it, but what can we do to make them hate it the least? And
Yeah.
some coaches love the gym. And they're just like, you got to be in it for 5, 7 hours a week. And I'm like, if a client hates the gym, you're never going to turn them into a gym rat, but you can find ways through coaching, communication, and strategy to get them in for 2 hours and they don't hate it. And I feel like that's
Totally.
something you've done very effectively with a lot of your clients.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. I also find that people are telling me that they don't like working out. They perhaps have a skewed impression of what
Oh yeah.
working out can be.
Cook.
Like
You're
they
about to
think
cook
it's
here. I know
boot
it.
camps. It's boot camps. They think it's like some like fitness like instructor like shouting at them from the front of the room to tell them to do like 10 more burpees.
Mm.
Um, it's pain. It's sweaty. you're exhausted for the rest of the day. That's what people who typically, not always, but typically who tell me that they don't like exercise, that's what they think exercise is. They don't see it as, oh, it can be maybe let's do 8 squats holding like a 20-pound dumbbell. Then let's have a 30-second rest. Then let's go and do maybe like a dumbbell chest press,
Yeah.
maybe for like another 8 reps. Then we'll take like a 3-minute break. Like
That
that's what
first three
exercise
minute
can be.
break is so crucial for a client because they've
Yeah.
never done that. A lot, like the
Yeah.
population that we're talking about, the first time you're like, 3 minutes, relax. You watch them go stir crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
When was the first time you did that? Because are you saying that you came from that background too, where it was a lot of like hit, burn workouts, crushing yourself, and then you transitioned? Or what was your relationship with working out like there? How did that progress?
I think it was becoming a little bit more familiar with how powerlifters train. I
Mm,
think, oh wow, these really strong guys. I mean, some of them are like, unhealthily, unhealthy amount of body fat, let's say, that they're
yeah.
above the recommended range, but a lot of them are not. And they're strong and they're lean. And oh, they're taking these 5-minute breaks. This is interesting. Um, I think it was also as well like learning that neat non-exercise activity
Yeah.
burns up to 3 times as many calories as exercise activity.
Yeah.
Like 3 times, like going to get your 7 to 10,000 steps per day, um, doing the shopping, running errands, washing clothes, tidying stuff up at home. All of that will burn 3 times as many calories as a workout, which
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
The first time I remember learning more about how the actual metabolism worked, it
Mm.
was it made a lot of sense after a bit, but at first I'm like, exercise burns the most calories. What are we talking about?
Of
And
course, it feels like that. All this sweat that's coming out of me, all that pain I went through.
yeah, I compare it to like if you had an energy bill in your house, assuming that the laundry is the most energy using utility you have, because when it's going, but you might only run 3 loads a week. I'm a single guy, so right, I'm a guy who lives alone, so I can say that. But the lights are what's gonna like keeping the lights on all the time. It's the micro things. It's all day of that
Yep.
energy. It's not a
Yep.
spurt. It's
Mm.
hundreds of hours of like micro uses, and that's kind of what need is. But people are like, dude, don't run the laundry is going to be the most energy using. It's like the X or the workout. I burn so much. And in reality, like
Mm.
you don't. And if you only work out 3 times a week, that's 3 hours. You're not going to actually
Yeah.
overdo it to that level of degree. But people think that they
Yeah.
need to do that.
Yeah. Basically, you can't sell go for a walk.
Yeah,
You can't
you
sell
really
that.
can't. Yeah, the
You know
commercial barriers to like good information are actually they're thick. They're thick barriers,
yeah.
man.
I mean, what is the ad for like going for a walk in the look like?
I mean,
I
you
mean, that's
sell
not sexy.
you can sell shoes.
Yeah, I
The
guess.
Fitbit,
Yeah,
I guess.
I guess. But even if you look at the Fitbit ads, it's like really lean, healthy people wearing not revealing a ton of skin, doing workouts.
Always comes back to sex. Let's be
Yeah, of
honest.
course it does.
It
Of
always
course it
comes
does,
back.
right? Got to make
Like
money, right,
this
Dylan?
device to just go for a walk and be a little more like healthy. Sex, all this. It's okay, cool. But we're back.
I guess that's how we can set it. How we have to somehow integrate sex into the walk, right?
Well, someone's gonna do that. Just the horniest walking ad of all time. And you're just like, you put down the screen like I should go for a walk, dude. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
That's what we need. We need more positive propaganda. Just
Totally.
like horny
Totally.
water, just like things like the
Holy
most boring
water.
things ever. And you're just like, I'm highly motivated to like do my taxes now.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
the next thing I want to talk about is
Mm.
you kind of in your intro, you kind of answered some of my questions, which is cool.
Okay, cool.
But the one thing I wanted to talk about is, and this is one of the things one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on is because you've went through something that I think is very important for any client if they want to make serious changes, regardless of if they want to change their body size, if they want to change
Mm.
anything with their habits and their behaviors, and they're coming from a much different space, there needs to be somewhat of an identity shift over time. And
Totally.
on your website, and you've run this post several times on your Instagram where you talk
Mm.
about, and I really appreciate that you do this, the Hey, I'm Daniel post. Here's my story. And it's very relatable because you're not just someone who's always excelled at fitness, right? And I've actually always
Still
thought
don't. I
coaches,
still don't.
I've always thought that coaches, not even just in fitness, shouldn't excel at their sport. Like I think Michael Jordan would be a really bad coach. And I
Yeah,
think the best football coach of all time is a guy who could never get on a field like Bill Belichick. No, no chance, right?
I don't know who that is, but I'm just going to take your word for it.
Yeah, he's the best American football. Yeah, Daniel's a
Okay,
Brit. So
cool,
when I say football, he probably
cool.
thought of soccer.
I
Um,
assume you're talking about the NFL or something.
yeah, but like if you look at the coaches, they're not generally. Sometimes they are, but they aren't generally the most exceptional athletes. Because I do think it's hard to connect with a client or an athlete if you've always excelled, because your approach might be just do it. Like I don't get it.
Mm,
Shouldn't just work harder, and that doesn't work, right?
yeah,
But you come from a place where you weren't healthy, you were smoking 40 a day, you weren't eating well, you weren't exercising, and you truly had an identity shift. So when do you
totally.
feel like that identity shift sat in, and what was that journey like going from there to where you are now, or at least when you felt like the identity shift had changed?
Mm. It's interesting. So, as you said, I never excelled at, but I was a sporty kid. I enjoyed playing sports. I just wasn't that good at them. I
Mm,
was just average, nothing special. Okay. Um, so there was an enjoyment of some sports, not most sports, but of some sports like soccer. But that was never strong in the gym. Didn't really know much about nutrition or anything. Um, I think my identity shifted too much in the wrong direction again, like I said, right? So I kind of defined myself as somebody. Nutrition and fitness became too much part of my identity, basically.
yeah.
Like I am the person who wakes up every morning, goes for a run. I am the person who never drinks alcohol, who never eats sugar, um, who only eats raw vegetables, all that kind of ridiculous extreme stuff. And that became too much part of my identity, which is why it's which is why these different diets, the people who are their adherents behave too much like cult members because it's
Yeah, they
become too
do.
much part of their identity.
Yeah, they really do.
So you have to be careful of that. Um, so I think for me, my identity really kind of maybe my early 30s, where I was at the point where I am I take care of my health, but in a non-extreme way.
So that's the identity shift. Because when you were talking about when
Yeah,
your identity shifted to being extreme, it doesn't sound like that's an identity shift. That's just you just changed the weapon of choice. But because the identity was still one that was more extreme. Before it was more extreme, just like
sure.
I don't
It was
care.
extreme in the other direction. Sure,
Yeah.
that's fair.
And I would
Yeah.
actually argue because people do that a lot in diet, they do it even politically. Like
Mm,
you'll if your identity is one that's extreme, you'll just change what you're extreme about, right?
yeah.
And you might say, because it's what's super interesting in the fitness industry. I've seen people go from vegan to carnivore and carnivore to vegan, and I'm like, you're still the same person though. You've just changed how you go about expressing that identity, right? But
Yeah.
it's an
Yeah.
overly dogmatic, extreme way of viewing nutrition and health. And now you're just doing
Mm.
it well, only eating beef or um only eating like plant-based foods. And there's a difference between being like plant-based for health reasons or whatever, and like we're talking about like the almost religious like type folks in that camp.
The ones who believe that meat will give you cancer or something.
Yeah.
Those
But
people. Yeah.
your identity shift, it sounds like that was when you became more moderate in your approach to
Sure.
nutrition.
It was the moderation, yeah. That was the approach, yeah. And realizing that I didn't have to kill myself with workouts. That if I can commit to averaging 3 things per week,
Mm.
like if I can hit 3 things a week, whether it's 2 strength workouts and a cardio workout, 2 cardio and a strength, or whatever, if I can just do something 3 days a week, great. And if I could only hit 2 1 week, that's also fine because I can just do 3 the following week.
It's on a spectrum
And
then.
losing that all or nothing mentality, where
Yeah.
just because I can't do everything well doesn't mean I have to stop doing everything.
So what if I were to tell you when you were 22 or 23,
Mm.
I just want you to you hire me as a coach, and I say to you, all right, Daniel, two strength workouts a week and one 30-minute run. And you can have, if you want to have a burger on Friday, go for it. What would your response to that be when you were in that headspace, you think?
So long ago. This is I'm going to think about this. This is a good question.
Take a think.
Um, yeah, it probably would have been, um, but I don't see anybody online getting results with this kind of program
Mm. Hmm. That's
because
probably
all my
true
research
too.
had been towards you don't see people on like, hey, get in shape with just 2 workouts a week. And the approach, the more 80-20 approach that I post about and you post about and the people post a lot about now on Instagram wasn't online. I mean, obviously 22 years old. This was before Instagram, right? But the forums were popular. The bodybuilding forums were popular at that time,
Yeah, and
right?
those are more extreme, and not in a bad
Again,
way,
it
but like athletes, like bodybuilding
yeah,
competitors go
you
there.
have to be extreme to be a bodybuilder. You
Yeah.
have to look like that. It takes an extreme approach. Back then, you weren't seeing people talking about here to do 2 workouts a week, do a short run, and just have pizza 3 or 4 times a week. You'll be fine. Like nobody was talking about that back then.
No, they really
It would have
weren't.
been a completely foreign, alien subject to me.
Hmm.
I wouldn't have believed you. I wouldn't have believed it was enough to get in shape.
And you would have instead sought probably a different opinion of someone telling you you got to do 5 days a week and crush
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
Huh.
yeah. So I know that back then, once I thought something was true, it was hard for me to stop believing that. If I thought that I'd researched it and understood it,
And did that transcend fitness?
probably,
Yeah.
probably,
Like in life, you were more like that. Because I mean, I was
probably,
the
yeah,
same way as a younger person.
yeah. I mean, like most like 22-year-old men are fucking idiots, right? We're just
Really?
like we're idiots. I mean, we're still idiots now, right? But now we kind of we are aware that we're idiots.
Yeah,
Um,
that's when you've really like self-actualized. And it's like
yeah,
the you think the goal is to not be an idiot, and really the goal is to accept and embrace your inner idiotness and remember that that's not driving your decisions, but that voice is there.
yeah. It's like
Yeah.
I said to you at the beginning of this conversation. I know nothing about basically everything,
Yeah.
right? And I know nothing about most things. Okay, and that would have been hard for a 22-year-old me to accept because it's hard for any 22-year-old guy to accept because we're all fucking idiots, like I said. Um, but now I'm like, okay, well, I know some things about fitness and nutrition, and now my job is to find out. Okay, if I want to learn about this, I'm not going to waste as much time researching that as I have on fitness and nutrition because I just don't have that time. But who are the people? This is what I've considered myself one thing that I'm good at. I'm good at finding the legit experts at stuff. It could take
Yeah.
me a while, but I'm good at knowing, okay, I should listen to this person, but not to this person, because I've believed enough charlatans over the last 20 years or so for me to be able to spot one pretty well, I think.
Oh yeah.
Um, so at this point, I know who to trust. Like we were talking before about like online coaching and building our like online business and who we can talk, who we can trust, and like maybe who we don't. And we both came to the agreement that we both trust this one guy who we mentioned before.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that I'm good at identifying those people. But yeah, 22-year-old me would have been like too pig-headed, would have been just too stubborn and too stupid to know that I was stupid.
And have you noticed that with working with any clients, that trait of like if a client is because like a client needs to be coachable, right?
Mm,
And we're all going to meet people at different times in their lives. And if
totally.
I were to apply for online coaching or to work with a coach when I was 22, 23, I probably would have been in a similar boat to you of
Yeah.
if someone gave me a more moderate approach, especially if I was struggling with adherence to a basic program. In
Mm,
my brain, I would think, well, I just need something more extreme. And it is a
yeah.
very flawed way of thinking because if I can't
Absolutely.
handle, it's like being a boss and saying to your employee, hey, you're overstretched with what you're currently, you can't handle what you're currently doing, but I'm going to give you more. And in no other area in the world we would we do this. But for
Yeah.
some reason in fitness, we do. Where a client would be like, you know what, I can't even do 2 a week. I just, you know what I do? I need a hard reset 5 days a week. So I assume you've come across that as a coach.
Yeah. It's fairly often that people will think you're right that I'm not getting results doing it this way, so I need to add more.
Yeah.
Whereas what you need to do is just pause and think, okay, well, how well am I doing the things that I'm trying to be doing right now? Because if you're not being consistent with the things that are on your current plan, that's what you need to work on to
Yeah.
consistency with your current plan. And sometimes I have to kind of talk this through with clients. So if we're not getting results, we measure, like we take measurements with my clients like every 2 weeks, really frequently. Okay. So that we know whether what we're doing is actually working. If we haven't seen progress, and I ask my client, hey, does that surprise you? And they say, yeah, I would have thought I would have seen some progress there. I've got a few questions that I ask them about their adherence to the current plan, how consistently they're doing things, whether it's closer to 80%, 90%, 100%. And these questions have been written for me to figure out where are they not being consistent with the current plan.
Yeah.
So my default response, if we're not getting results, but we think we should be, is to ask them these questions. And 99 times out of 100, it's one of these things that we have to change before we then think, okay, well, we should then add another workout or we should drop calories. That's rarely the solution.
Yeah.
Um, and in fact, I was very impressed with one of my clients recently. She a couple of weeks ago said, "Hey, I want to do 3 workouts a week now. I want to do it with 3 workouts a week." And then this week she's come back to me saying, "You know what, Daniel? I think that was a bad move because I was been finding it hard to get the steps. I want to do an extra workout, but I think that adding the extra workout was maybe not the great idea for me. I think I will drop
Damn.
back to 2 workouts a week and focus on doing that with the steps." I'm like, you're just coaching yourself at this point. This is amazing.
That actually got me like that made me fired up. And I think
Yeah.
and this is actually very interesting to me because I think a lot of clients would think that that would make their coach disappointed of like, hey, I asked for more and I couldn't do it. But in reality, I mean, hopefully, if you're a good coach, that would make you happy because you're like, you are
Uh,
actually developing a
I
level of self
I
efficacy.
gave her so much praise for sending me that message. I was like, this is so awesome. I love this so much.
Yeah, that is the embodiment of having a more moderate approach. And
Yeah.
actually, some a colleague or a previous guest on the podcast, Gabrielle Fondero. She's like she was doing some gut health specialist stuff for a while, but she's
Okay.
awesome. And she was also a powerlifter, but she would use kind of RP, RPE when you're doing like your
Sure.
sets. She would use that with nutrition with clients. Like,
Interesting.
what's your RPE with eating this current diet with what you're currently doing? You know what? Because it's going to change day to day. You're trying to do it.
Mm,
You're aiming for to add more protein in your diet, more vegetables, etc. What is the RPE of that? And the point of using RPE is called auto regulation. And it's really so you can use your subjective feedback to make your next decision. It's not this like jargony science thing. It really is, hey, how do you feel? Right? It's not only feelings, but it's how does this feel? And we are feelings led creatures. And
yeah.
we will use that subjective data to make the next decision. And your client was like, she took stock and was like, this is
Mm,
too much. And
yep.
instead of, I think a lot of people would be like, no, but I just need to work harder. The version of
Mm,
me that I want to be would do this. This person does this. This person does this. While not knowing anyone else's circumstances, she just went inward and was like, this is too much for me right now. I'll pull back.
yep.
And that's something that I
Yep.
would think is going to make a successful client long term, way after they're working with you or I.
100%. 100%. I asked a similar question to clients at the end of their kickoff call. We've come up with a plan for workouts, for nutrition, general lifestyle stuff. And this is a good question for anybody to ask themselves when they found a new plan, new diet online that they want to follow. And the question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, and you can't say 7, how confident do you feel about being able to follow this plan for the next 2 weeks? And if it's less than an 8, we've got to find a new plan or change something about the plan because that is just too difficult.
Everyone says 7.
I say to people that you can't say 7 because 7 is a non-committal answer. I don't let any clients tell me 7. If they do ask us 8, is it closer to a 6 or closer to an 8? Because let's say I ask somebody, okay, how well do you think you slept last night on a scale of 1 to 10? If they
Uh,
tell me it was a 6, I'm like, okay, we've got to try and figure something out. If it was an 8, I'm like, okay, we could probably just leave it as is. 8's pretty good. If you tell me it's a 7, I've got no clue what to do with a
huh.
7.
It's actually kind of funny. It's like a centrist answer. You're like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm like, why?
it's like you don't want to offend anybody. You don't really want to commit to anything. How good was that movie? Or how well did you enjoy the book that I wrote? Oh, I was like a solid 7 out of 10. What does that mean?
Oh my God, that is actually like if, this is crass, but I'm even thinking when I was younger and like people used to like rate people out of 1 to 10, and like an 8, you're like that person's hot, and you would never call someone a 6. That's just fucking rude, right? Not that we should put people on numerical scales, but everyone listening, you know what I'm talking about. A
Teenage boys
7
do
was
dumb
the
shit. We've
answer of
already
like,
said this.
hey, like yeah,
Yeah.
that's what you would tell everyone that you were like, I don't want to offend you, and I don't, you're not my cup of tea, essentially.
Yeah.
Damn, dude. 7 is my favorite number of all time as well.
That's fair.
Yeah. I'm a non-committal
I,
guy, apparently.
and also, but this is not my thing. I stole this from another coach. I don't remember who it was at this point. Probably Dan John. I steal a bunch of Dan John stuff, and I kind of eventually forget that it was stolen from Dan John.
Highest
Um,
form of flattery.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
funny.
Nothing. I mean, there are not many things that are like original right now, huh? Like
No.
I'm not do nothing that I talk about is original. Focus on the strength training and walking and sleep and stress management.
Totally.
Eating a moderate calorie deficit, following 80-20 guideline. That's nothing new.
What a segue, Daniel, because it just so happens that
Yeah.
my next question was touching right like we're synced up. Our periods have synced up right now. It is going well here at the Five Elements podcast. So
Oh man.
when it comes to like, because you coach weight loss mainly, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Um, you hammer home the basics, and you've always done this with your social media content,
Mm.
with how you coach people, how you talk. It's the same message day in, day out, with in different uniforms, and trying to like capture the audience so they can be like, okay, this is here, right? It's probably not going to catch the audience immediately, but you're always there day to day. And when they've tried the thing X, Y, and Z, they'll always come back to, you know what, maybe Daniel's cooking up some truth bombs over here because he's been here
Mm.
saying this. But it is the basics, and you are hammering it home. But in your
Yeah.
opinion, why do you think people struggle so much with being consistent with the basics?
It's hard. Our environment is not set up to follow the basics, especially if you live in the suburbs, which a lot of my clients do. The
Mm,
suburbs are not set up for you to be able to get up and walk around a ton. There are often no gyms nearby. Um, Calorie dense, palatable food is relatively cheap and available to a lot of people. Like our environment is not set up for the basics. We're encouraged to have our work emails on our phone. Our phones are addictive if you're not careful, if you're not using them properly. It's easy to be in bed scrolling on social media, and again the apps are designed to have you spend as much time as possible on there. So
yeah.
you're inputting all of this information just before you're meant to be in a relaxed state and go to sleep. So your sleep's going to suffer. You may well be able to fall asleep, but you're not going to be able to get into a deep sleep state because you just stimulated your brain with megabytes and megabytes and gigabytes worth of information that it has to fucking process before you can actually get into a nice deep sleep state.
Yeah.
Um, Nothing about our modern environment is conducive to the basics, quite
Yeah.
frankly. It takes a concerted effort. You have to actually focus on it, and you have to focus on it for long enough and consistently enough for it to become habit, which takes for most people somewhere around 6 months. And that's a long time, and that's hard.
It's a
And
long
that's where
time
the
for,
value of having a coach can really come in, right? Because that coach is going to be checking in with you every single damn week to make sure that you did those things that you said you were going to do.
I
So
didn't
yeah,
think you
it's
were going to
hard.
go,
It's really hard.
I didn't think you were going to go the environment route, but you're spot on. Like the environment is so indicative, and it doesn't determine the outcome, right?
Yeah.
But it does heavily influence it. And I think a lot of people forget about the role that any environment plays in human behavior. Because if it's the only thing you've ever known, you don't tend to question it. You're like, I don't know, it's just
Mm.
kind of how life is. And it's like, that's true, but it was designed not by someone, but by systems and over time and
Sure.
just how
Hmm.
the world works. And when
Yeah.
you're in that environment, and if you're in the environment and you're unaware of it and you're just doing as you do, you will probably regress to the mean, right? You'll probably do what the
Yeah.
average person does in that environment. And that doesn't mean that you'll have your results will be the exact same, because we all are different. But I would definitely agree with you that the average environment that most people are in right now is one that's going to push them to kind of the opposite, eating more, and not necessarily eating more grams of food, but eating
Hmm.
more calorie dense, hyper palatable foods that aren't that satiating, and
Yeah.
moving less.
That's what the
Totally.
environment will push you towards, unless you take a careful approach in trying to tweak whatever you can to make it
Mm,
more indicative of your goals.
absolutely. And I think one of the reasons why Europeans in general have lower body weight, fewer issues with weight and weight loss than we do here in North America, because those old cities were built around like people are walking and pedestrians basically,
Yeah, they
whereas
were.
North American cities, well, the modern ones at least, are like were built around the car,
Yeah, they're built around the suburbs and like,
or they were grown around the car at least, right? And then the suburbs were built specifically for people who could like live close to a city, but they'd have to take a car in. It's like, yeah, if you live like in Paris or you live in Rome or Madrid or anywhere in Europe, you're going to be walking around all the damn time, right?
I've
You're going to be
actually
getting your
noticed that with
10,000 steps
clients.
without trying.
I've noticed that a lot with clients when they go to Europe. Any of my clients that have done so, and they struggle
Yeah.
so much to keep their activity levels high and everything. And then they're like, I was in Italy for 2 weeks. And what's funny is sometimes these are clients who are maybe like carb phobic. They're like, I try not to eat any rice or pasta. And they're like, yeah, I was in Italy and I was fucking eating. And I
Yep.
felt good because I was moving a lot. And I'm like, yeah, you don't,
Totally.
your environment here is completely opposite. And yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Those are very walkable cities. And if anyone's ever had the
Yeah.
experience of, back to my earlier point, if you've only ever lived in one, you have no idea what it's like to live in the other. Like I
Mm.
assume, because I have noticed Europeans are incredibly judgmental about the body size of North Americans, right? Probably because they can't imagine. They're like, because they're like, well, we drink, we eat delicious, they way more delicious foods than we do. But they're like, well, we like our average body size is smaller, and they're very judgmental. And they're like, they're called them like lazy slobs. And I'm like, listen, if you were sent to rural Alberta or Mississippi or like a suburb in Ontario, and you didn't change some of your behaviors, you'd probably end up in the
Yeah.
same position because you're like, you live in a very walkable city that was designed to be walked in.
Yeah.
If you're in an environment that doesn't promote that, not a chance.
And we're at the point now where a lot of my clients have told me that they can't walk on their walking pad during meetings at work, like on Zoom, because it's considered unprofessional. What, to
Huh.
try to be healthy is considered unprofessional just because
Yeah.
your head's bopping up and down like this? It's somehow distracting. No, I don't believe that.
No.
I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I would love for companies to actually provide walking pads to their staff and create some kind of incentive, right, to actually get up and move around. We don't talk about weight loss; we're talking about general health at this point, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because sitting all day is just no good for you. We know that.
No one feels
We
good
know
doing
that.
it either.
No one does. No. And again, like I live in the suburbs. I'm in the suburbs of Halifax right now. So I have to intentionally go out for walks.
Yeah.
Like I'll often go for a walk with no specific purpose. I think, okay, I'm going to do this loop around here. That's going to take me about half an hour. It's going to take me about 3,000 steps. I'm going to walk the dog around this particular loop. It's going to get me this many steps. I've got to block off time at lunchtime to go for a walk then. And at this point, it's normal. But when we first got here, I was like, oh, like I don't have this like half-hour walk to the gym where I used to work at, and then to get all my steps at work, and then walk home in the evening and get like 12,000 steps without having to pay any kind of attention to it.
I think you're touching on something I've thought about quite a bit, and that's the external motivators or the external forces that shape your behavior. And that's what an
Yep.
environment does, right?
Sure.
Because I've noticed this with trying to do this with clients who, especially when they went more remote, they'd get a 30-minute walk to work or walk to the subway. And then even like if they're just in the city of
Exactly.
Toronto, they're walking somewhere because they gotta walk.
Yeah.
And then they're at home. And I'm like, listen, you have 30 minutes. We've seen that by evidence because
Mm.
when you had to be at work, you had to take the 30 minutes and you walked. So what are you doing with that 30 minutes now? And listen, these are busy parents, they're professionals. You can always find 30 minutes to fill around the house or whatever. But I'm like, that
Mm.
is now we've lost that. How do we get that back? And I have noticed it's
Yeah.
very challenging to get someone to go on a walk without the external pressure of, oh my God, I got to be here on time. Because then you don't make a decision. The decision's
Mm.
already made for you. You're like, no, you gotta go
Yep.
to work. It's not really a choice we're making. So you got to walk, right? And
Yeah.
now that
And
work from
and
home setup has its pros, but it's also you really are pushed and nudged into essentially while you're working doing nothing.
yeah. Yeah. And this is where putting all of these things into your calendar comes into play. And I actually tell my clients, put this into your work calendar, block off time at lunchtime, set reminders before, because you're probably going to check your work calendar more than your personal calendar. So
True.
put it into your work calendar, block off time to go for walks at certain times. In fact, on my kickoff call, I'll often make my client pull up their calendar. I think, okay, cool. We're not going to calendar everything. It's going to feel like it's too much. But what do we think are the most important things we need to focus on? What are you going to find it most challenging to be consistent with? And therefore, what do we need to try to put on autopilot as much as possible?
Yeah.
And
What
walking is
decisions
one
are
of the
being made
major
for
ones.
you?
Exactly. Yeah. It's again why I have my clients who track calories, which is most of them. I'll have them actually set a reminder in their phone to pre-track, so that as they're going through their day, they don't have to make the decision to eat that particular thing. They don't have to pull out the phone and track it. It's all done for them, so they can keep all of their willpower, their brain power, their focus on work and family, not have to make so many decisions as they go through the day.
That is an understated thing that clients struggle with, and not just clients, anyone,
Yeah,
is the finite resource that is willpower. And when
totally.
we don't plan ahead, and I'm not saying anything that hasn't been said before, but when you don't plan ahead, you have to make way more decisions in the moment. And I think because decisions aren't actually a physical thing that we do, we don't think that they require energy. But
Mhm.
the most exhaustive organ that we have from an energy perspective is our brains. And we
Yeah.
spend
Is it
so much
20%
time.
of our calories it burns?
Yeah, it
Something
is
like
the
that?
highest
Yeah.
percentage per organ of like calories
Yeah.
burned in the brain. That thing is just cooking all the time.
Yeah.
It's basically it's like one of those generators that creates Bitcoin. Like they call them like environmental terrorists. Like they just suck so much energy just to create one
Yeah.
Bitcoin. That's what our brains are, and they just never stop.
Yeah.
And when we have to make just one more decision in a vacuum, it seems fine.
Mm.
But I'm like, no, no, no. I say this to clients all the time. I'm like, imagine you're making a decision at 6 p.m. after a full day of whether you're a parent, you're a spouse, you're a professional, you've done all these things. That decision, the state you're in when you're entering that, making that decision at 6 p.m. is a much different state than the state you're in when
Yeah.
you're making that like pre, right? And whether it's tracking calories or you're planning your workouts, like those decisions being made, that's how you work smarter, not harder.
Totally. Like nobody has ever come home from work exhausted and said, "Oh, I can't wait to get home and make this awesome salad." Like no one's ever said that.
No,
It's like, okay, I'm just gonna pull up Uber Eats on the way home, order Domino's. Then when I get home, it's gonna be there within 5 minutes.
and it's awesome every time.
Yeah. Again, we can sweat the environment. Like these phones make it way too easy just to get that hyper palatable food delivered to our door. We don't even have to go to the store to get it anymore.
Yeah, it is actually nuts. It's so, I remember COVID, I think I ate a box of pizza every day for like a month straight up. And I was like, don't care.
Yeah.
This is what I'm living for right now. Um,
Justifying it as like supporting local business, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
they made us seem like we
Yeah.
were heroes. Like I'm ordering a
Yeah.
box of pizza every day and I put a cape on to do it. I'm like, you're
Yeah.
welcome. I saved the community by binge eating this large pizza and then taking a nap at 2 p.m. um,
Yeah.
so last thing I want
But
to talk
it
about,
just
because
shows you.
you got to go
You
soon.
go ahead. Go
So
ahead.
um, this is also something that is very important. You've talked about it a little bit, but you're a recent, no, I don't want to say recent, but decently recent dad, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Still, my daughter's 3 this month, so still really new. Yeah.
What's been the biggest lesson you've learned about fitness while also being a parent?
Um, that you're not going to be able to follow your plan perfectly,
Even less than before.
even less than before. Even less than before. I'll give you an example. So Friday before last, I woke up at 6 to go and do my hour workout. Went up to my office to grab something. On the way down to the basement, which is where the weights are and the benches, I heard my daughter crying, "Daddy, Daddy." So of course, I'm not going to just ignore her. So I went into her room, got her up, took her down to the potty, had to go pee on there. She wasn't feeling well, gave her a little cuddle, got her changed, brought her back down. It was like 6:30 at this point. I'm like, okay, cool, still have time to do some of the workout. My wife woke up, took over. I went downstairs. I thought, okay, I can get about half my workout done now. Okay. 15 minutes later, I hear my daughter throwing up upstairs. So I go back upstairs, help clean up, make sure she's okay. Um, got to make sure everything was okay. Went downstairs, did another 10 minutes of my workout. I thought, you know what, I can do the other half around lunchtime. Work caught up with me, checking in with my daughter and my wife, make sure everybody was okay, taking over for my wife so that she could have a shower. I only got a half of the half workout done. So now it's noon. It's 6 hours into when my workout should have started. I've done 3/4 of it.
Yeah.
And I had an afternoon full of calls, again, taking over dinner time, make sure my daughter was okay. I was going to get somewhat through the final bit just before my dinner. Never happened because just like, again, taking care of the family. Had dinner, put my daughter to bed, finished up a little bit of work, finished up the last 15 minutes of my workout at 9:30.
Damn.
So my workout that should have been from 6 till 7 a.m. started at 6, well, then was postponed until 6:30, and I ended up finishing it at 9:30 at night.
It's like,
And that was even with shaving sets off and cutting out 1 or 2 exercises from it.
damn. You gotta be flexible for that.
You have to, if you think you want to be flexible when it comes to the 80-20 approach, wait till you have a kid on top of that. The extra level of flexibility that you need to then be able to work in. And thinking, okay, well, I can do a half workout today and the other half tomorrow.
So this
Or
is
if I
you're
can't
3 years in with this though. So what was that like when you were brand new dad to now? Like what's that learning process been like?
of becoming a dad or of implementing all of these healthy habits around becoming a
Yeah,
dad.
yeah. Teach us
Yeah.
how to be a dad, Daniel.
Yeah.
We're gonna start a whole brand new podcast.
Yeah.
Last 5 minutes, just give me the Sparks notes on being a good dad.
Yeah.
No, more so like because when you started, I assume every parent I've ever met has said, I had no idea. I thought I had an idea. I had no fucking clue.
Yeah, you got
So
no idea.
what was it like in terms of like restructuring how you get your workouts and your flexibility from the day your daughter was born to like now? What's it like now?
Okay, so first of all, for the 2 weeks after she was born, there were no workouts.
Yeah, understand.
Just didn't happen. Just being okay with that. I was very lucky, and that at the time and still now, working from home independently, no boss to answer to. So I could make my schedule as flexible as I needed to. So I was super, super fortunate in that sense as well. And it was because sleep was so bad, it was such a blur the first 5 months until we were able to sleep train her. But from what I remember, it's okay, what are my bare ass minimums?
Love
What is
band.
the absolute minimum? What are my bare ass minimums going to be? And for me, it was, can I do kind of like 2 mediocre workouts a week for like 20 to 30 minutes?
Yeah.
If I can do that, that'll be great. I was fortunate in that it was kind of, she was born in June, so July, August, September, the warmer months. She could only nap, as it turns out, if she was being pushed in the stroller. So guess who got tons of steps during that time, just from being able to push her in that stroller. So I was lucky there. And when it came to things like to food, think, okay, well, how can I make this as easy as possible? Like, I think we started doing it around then is where we try to simplify our meals as much as we possibly could, and to minimize how often we had to cook.
Yeah.
So what we used to do, and we still do this quite a lot now, is on Monday cook twice as much as we need and have the other half on Thursday. Tuesday, cook twice as much as we need, have the other half on Friday.
Yeah.
Wednesday, get takeout. Thursday's taken care of. Friday's taken care of. Saturday, either takeout for the second time or just something really simple. And then Sunday dinner was just, okay, what leftovers do we have that we can kind of throw together?
Wow. That's so unsexy, but so effective. Damn. Like, it's so interesting. The Wednesday takeout one. Very smart. I actually never thought about that. Because most people don't plan a takeout in the middle of the week. Because even though I've worked on a lot of this stuff in my brain, I don't even think about
that's a weekend food, right?
Yeah. And I know it's not intellectually, but for some reason in my brain, I was like, What? You can't do that?
Yeah.
Is that allowed?
And I mean, sometimes it will be fast food. Other
Yeah.
times it will be like a salad, like a Greek salad bowl. Other times it would be like a burrito bowl. Um, but yeah, just something that meant we didn't have to cook and that will be easy on a Wednesday. So
Incredibly
Wednesday,
flexible.
Thursday, Friday, we just had to either order something or just heat things up. And
Yeah.
then on Saturday, we'd have our mother-in-law, my mother-in-law would come over, and there we go. That's like an extra person to take care of the baby. One of us could make something, and yeah, just we had to make things as simple as possible. And like I said, that habit has stuck now. Even though she's 3, she can just happily, or she's almost 3 rather. My wife hates me saying that she's already 3. No, she's still 2. I'm like, okay, cool. She's still 2, fair enough. But she could just happily play on her own now. She still needs some degree of supervision, of course, but she can just kind of like play, and she can like walk around, stand and talk to us and call us if she has any kinds of issues. But even then, like we still keep up this habit quite a lot of making twice as much as we need 2 or 3 days a week, just to make the
Damn.
rest of the week a little bit easier.
I mean, that's actually the thing that stands out the most is how flexible that is. And that is something. And here's the thing, you're like okay with it, right? You're like, hey man, this is the best I got. And I think a lot of
Yeah,
times it's so embodying of how you are detaching from the idea you need to be perfect.
yeah,
And that's what you say to clients a lot. It's actually what I say to clients too. It's like, hey, this is all I got right now. And this is cool. Like this is
yeah.
actually very solid. It is full circle compared to how you started in our podcast talking about your story. Is like, hey man,
Mm,
like sometimes I gotta do fast food on a Wednesday. Sometimes a workout gets chunked into 5 separate little chapters, and
yeah.
and I get 2 workouts in a week sometimes, and you're still maintaining a lot of healthy habits along that journey.
Yeah.
And it's not sexy, but it's damn effective.
And that was also when I started to really put a lot more focus. And that just helped my clients too. Okay, what can I keep in my fridge and my cupboards that's going to take me like 3 or 4 minutes to put together
Mm.
and then 3 or 4 minutes to eat,
Yeah.
which is challenging. So, a few things that I like, if you go to look in my fridge, there's always things like Greek yogurt,
Yeah.
nut butter, there's bread in the freezer, there's like frozen berries. So, I could, within 5 minutes, throw a slice of bread in the toaster, put some Greek yogurt and some blueberries in a bowl, have the toast pop up, spread some peanut butter on there. And then I've got like a relatively healthy meal right there. I've got the protein from the Greek yogurt. I've got some nutrients and some fiber from those blueberries. I've got some wholemeal bread with some nut butters. I've got some carbs. I've got some healthy fats. And that'll keep me full for quite a long time. And that's a very simple meal. So focusing on having healthy yet quick and easy meals, which is difficult
Yeah.
when you're in the thick of it. If you're not used to thinking about nutrition, like having those kinds of very easy things available to us really helped us out a ton as well, and still do now.
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes total sense. You have to, because if you don't, the thing that's negotiable there is whether it's healthy. Because if
Yeah,
you're in the thick of it, it's going to be quick and easy. And the
yeah,
environment would dictate that it's going to be quick and easy and like less nutritious.
absolutely, yeah,
And
yeah.
what you're doing is you're just like trying to master, it's going to have to be quick and easy, but how can we make it more nutritious?
Mm.
Yeah.
And this goes back again to the I mentioned the all or nothing mindset before, right? So the all or nothing version of me, who would have been way too young to have a kid because I was again a fucking idiot.
That would have been a good
Um,
time.
Oh man, I would have screwed that kid up so badly, man, if I would have
I
had the
think
kid
about
at
that
that
all
time.
the time.
Oh my god, imagine that. It's my
You'd
nightmare.
have been like, shut up. I'm trying to get a pump down here, baby. 6 a.m. Go back to bed. Daddy's doing biceps right now.
It's funny, cutting out bias and tries. One of the things that I did when I was trying to have those time effective workouts. My arms got smaller, but I was like, whatever, I'm still doing something. And like again, like the me in my late 20s, the idea of not training arms would have been just absolutely insane.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, like not giving up because I can't follow the same plan and live the same way that I could do before. Thinking, okay, well, this is the situation that I'm in. How can I make the best decisions in this particular situation?
Damn. Yeah, you're like, because you're saying all or nothing, which is something I think a lot of people listening will relate to. You're very comfortable with something.
Yeah, I mean, I literally I will say, look, there's you're either on or you're off right? But what about all this space right here?
Yeah. It's a dial.
There's
It's
so
not a
much space
switch.
to exist in right here, right?
And that's really where the change happens long term because you can't be on all the time, right?
No,
No.
one care.
No. Okay,
No.
man. That was awesome. I think that's all the time we have. I know today you got a hard stop right now. I mean, that could have gone on for another hour, which that's how our Instagram live went too. But what I'll finish up with is where can people find you and what do you mostly offer?
Instagram is where I post most often. Rosentrain.
Yeah.
I have a newsletter that I send out every week as well. It's called Fit Bullets Friday.
I'm a reader.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate that. So yeah, I send out 3 to 5 short bullet points, giving it's either something that I haven't posted on Instagram or it's an expanded version of something that I put on Instagram. So if you want to check that out, it's go to rosentrain.com/newsletter and you can just sign up there.
And I'll put that in the show notes. So if they go to your
thank you.
They'll just click on it.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm coaching is what I offer most of all. That's the only thing that I do online. I coach people. You can go to rosentrain.com /online-coaching if you want to check it out. I specialize mostly in helping women over 40, mostly moms who also have professional careers and who have again, like demands on their time, which means that they can't follow the same plan that they did back when they were in their early 20s. I help them lose weight in a sustainable way and not just lose weight, but also how to keep it off in the long term as well.
Yeah, that's a big part of your content. And that's because I'm not working as much with weight loss people anymore, but anyone who I'm working with weight loss wise is someone who we are discussing the chance that they might not be able to lose it. Right. As in you might do everything right and it might not move in the right direction. And I still want you to be proud of any changes you've made, but also we're going to talk about weight maintenance and you do that a lot. And I always respect that about you because it's very easy to only talk about weight loss. Anyone can lose weight. It's the keeping it off part that is statistically the huge barrier because most people who've tried to lose weight have lost weight at some point, but keeping it off is the bigger issue. And I think a lot of things you talk about, and especially on this podcast, you're someone who has lost weight and kept it off. And it's through a lot of things you're talking about. So, I mean, if you're listening to this and you're thinking hey, I do really want to lose weight, but I'm stuck going from fad to fad. And I need a little bit of kind of the opposite of spice in my life. I need a little stability. I need a little bit of
I need some boredom for the next few months.
I need some basics to hammer.
Maybe not boredom, maybe some mundanity.
Yeah.
The mundane.
The mundane is
brushing
underrated.
your teeth.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Dude.
Yeah.
That's where real relationships are built. That's where real friendships, that's where real change is built. It's not all oxytocin and cocaine. It is a lot of mundanity and just day in, day out laying bricks.
Yeah. Just being patient, doing the same thing over and over again until you see a result.
Yeah, 100%. So I'll put all that in the show notes. And
awesome.
Thanks for coming on, man. That was awesome.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Totally.
Okay, once again, thank you for listening to the 5 Elements podcast. 2 ways you can support the show is leave a review wherever you listen to this, share with some friends, and if you are looking for some online coaching, this conversation I just had with Daniel exemplifies how both of us operate in this field. And if I sound like I'm a good fit for you, check out what I offer with online coaching in the show notes of this episode, and I will see you next time. Okay, cheers.